Welcome to the first episode of the Search for the Best RTS. In this series, I plan to play through the giant catalog of RTS games out there and rank them using a tier list, going from the lowest of the F tier to the highest on the S tier. Now, for games I will consider as RTS games, that can be somewhat tricky. RTS just stands for real-time strategy, so a very broad category if you go by name alone. Most games I'll talk about will most likely fall into more traditional RTS games like Age of Empires or Command & Conquer, but I'm not opposed to talking about colony sims like RimWorld, games that focus a little bit more on city building like Anno, god games like Populous, or action RTS games like Brutal Legend. When I talk about games too, much like my normal reviews, it won't be pure objectivity, but mixed with how I feel about the game and what I personally like. And with that out of the way, welcome to Goblin Commander.
Our story is not one of providence, not one of divinity or evolution from the primordial slime. Those stories we leave to humans and their endless thirst for pride.
Goblin Commander Unleash the Horde is a console-exclusive RTS game made by Jellico, a now-defunct company. Since Goblin Commander is a console exclusive, the only ways to play is either buying a copy off a reseller or emulating the game. I chose to emulate because I don't have a capture card. For this review I'll be using PCSX2, a PlayStation 2 emulator. It ran pretty well with only a few slowdowns every now and again, but I remember it even having these problems when I played it on the original Xbox. I feel like Goblin Commander holds up pretty well because of its art style. They used the technology of the time to work for their art style pretty well. Designs for goblins and their respective factions have a lot of character in them, and the low poly models also give them some pretty interesting and sharp silhouettes. When upgrading units, you can actually see the upgrades that they have, which I love. Not only does it look good and feel like your decisions are having more of an impact, but it also improves readability. Environments are nice, with each chapter taking you to a new biome of sorts, whether it be a forest or frozen mountaintops. I like most of the environments, though the first and the last chapter leave a lot to be desired, being really dull cave systems with just some machinery scattered around. Environments can also be a bit samey in the same biome. They don't do too much to spice it up, but for an older title, I do like the environments. One thing that both the character design and the environments besides the caves do well is colors. Each Goblin clan has a color associated with them, and their maps in the games that also associate with them complement that color. For instance, the Stormbringer clan that are blue and white, they come from the mountaintops. Sound design isn't the best. The UI sounds are nice, but when the fighting starts, it's just a horrible mess of sounds. It can be very grating on the ears, and it's just bad. Like I said earlier, the UI sounds are good, and the sounds inside of buildings when producing units and such are good, but overall it's not great. Music is mostly ambient tracks, nothing too noticeable, but I do like some of them, and the voice work is fun, nonsensical gibberish. The voice work is really only persistent in the in-game cutscenes, and just general mission dialogue, but the in-game cutscenes are fun to watch. Goblin Commander's gameplay is not like other RTS games. Instead of having one faction that you pick, you get up to 3 clans at a time. This is important because controlling units, once again, is not like most RTS games. You can only control each clan as a whole unit. You can also direct control certain units in a clan to get better control over them, and you can also tell other clans to follow one clan. Each clan has a clan house where you're able to produce their units and upgrades. Each clan can have a maximum of 10 units out at a time. I think with the limitation of only really being able to control each clan as one unit kills a lot of the tactical depth and strategy to the entire game, especially early game where you only get one clan. I look at the clans in this game as more of a customizable squad, since you can have your clan made up of any of the units that the clan has access to. So if you wanted to, you can just make up a clan of one unit type, which I like in concept. I do feel like overall combat is just a little mediocre, I guess. It reminds me somewhat of Minecraft Legends, where it's just lumps fighting. The game does it a million times better, but I still think it has a lack of depth on the strategic side. Clans are somewhat specialized. The Hellfire clan is very focused on ranged weaponry, while the Stonekrushers are more melee focused. So each clan plays into their strengths, even upgrades are somewhat specialized to each faction. Every clan gets a special unit, which you can only have one of out at a time. For instance, the drummer that heals nearby units, or the wind mage that increases armor. These are pretty useful, so you'll usually want them in a clan. All units will also have little stat bars in the bottom left to tell how much health and armor, damage, and speed they have. You can see it when you're in the clan house selecting units. Each clan has about 5 different units they can make, usually start with the first 2 unlocked, a basic ranged and melee unit. But for the other units you have to unlock them by paying either souls, gold, or both, it depends on the clan. Gold is also used to upgrade your units. When upgrading, it affects every unit in that clan, so if you upgrade armor, every unit's going to feel the benefits from that, besides the special upgrades for the special unit. You get souls by killing enemies and capturing soul wells around the map, and you get gold by destroying props in the environment like rocks, structures, plants, and so on. Maps can also have capturable structures around. These can give you sight, the ability to teleport units, or allow you to purchase runes. Runes are magical powers you can only use once, and you can only hold 2 of them at a time. These can range from AoE healing, armor, meteors, and more. These, like I said earlier, can be purchased from shops for gold, or they can be found around the map. Each clan also gets a super unit called a Titan and a turret corresponding to the clan. You can only have one Titan out at a time, and you have to direct control them as well. They won't move or attack on their own. These units can cause a lot of damage, but usually cost a lot. Turrets can be placed anywhere you can see, so great for not only defending your base, but also protecting strategic points like soul wells or capturable structures. You only have 3 turrets out at a time, so choose wisely where you place them, and luckily if you end up wanting to get rid of a turret, you can. Titans and turrets are created at your Hall of Titans. The Hall of Titans and clan houses can be destroyed, but if they are destroyed, you can repair them by spending some gold. Map and mission designs were pretty fun. I had a lot of fun with the main campaign, and a lot of the missions were pretty varied. One thing that's really a killer for my enjoyment of the game though is the lack of AI in skirmish. They still have a skirmish, but it's only local split screen. I'm not sure if they couldn't add it due to limitations with the engine or hardware, but I also talk about this in my Minecraft Legends video. Not having AI skirmish in an RTS game is a really big downside to me, because that's where I get a lot of the replayability in these games. It also makes getting footage for specific things a little hard sometimes if that's not in the game. Luckily, I did have someone to play the skirmish with, and it seems like it still could be fun. I do want to play a little bit more of it, but I think if you do have somebody local that does like RTS games, it would be fun to try out with them. The Stonecrusher clan is all about rock and stone. All their skin is grey and stone-like, their tower is a cannon made of stone, and their final upgrades turn their gear into lava, so they revolve a lot around Earth. Stonecrushers are a very melee-focused clan. They have really good health and melee damage, and possibly the best special unit, the Drummer, which heals all nearby allies. It's honestly such a boost to survivability, and it makes the Stonecrusher clan able to take so much punishment. Their first melee unit is the Miner. The Miner is the most well-armored unit in the game, I believe, but doesn't have amazing health. Their ranged unit is okay. I'm not sure, but I think when the Stone Thrower hits an enemy, it might knock them down, but I'm not sure if it's them or the next unit, the Lugger, their medium melee. I didn't end up using them too much, I just thought they were kind of weak in my opinion compared to some of their other units. Like the last unit, the Pit Boss. I really love these guys. They have a lot of damage, but trade that for having no defense. But they're pretty strong and I really like their design. The Stonecrusher clan also has a really good tower, it's really sturdy, and their projectile throws enemies around. And their Titan is pretty good too. It's able to sweep a pretty large area and eat enemy goblins to regain health. The Hellfire clan is all about tech and machinery. They also use a lot of black powder and firearms. Hellfire is very industrious, and their melee unit really fits this by being a lumberjack with a chainsaw. Overall, a very fiery and expansionist clan. The Hellfire clan focuses a lot on range and ranged weaponry. One of the clan's upgrades is increasing the amount of ranged units have, and their special unit plays into this very well, being a scout that reveals a big part of the map wherever he is, which the scout's vision can also be upgraded, offering more sight. Their melee unit, the Lumberjack, is pretty good and has a lot of armor. The basic ranged unit is the Archer. They're great and the main unit I used when playing the clan. The Hunter is just kinda there. I never really used them all too much, I think mainly because they have a slower fire rate than the Archers and didn't make up for it with damage in my opinion. The last unit is the Bombardier. I love this guy. He uses a giant cannon with great damage in AoE, and he's really good for taking out structures and just a really good support unit to have in the backlines. Their turret is a giant magnifying glass that shoots a beam of fire and has pretty good range, and their Titan is a giant hog with a catapult strapped to the back, which can either launch normal boulders or flaming ones. The Stormbringer clan are very blue and wear cold weather clothing. They're also very attuned with the magical arts, with all their units having some sort of magical wand or stave. The Stormbringers focus on magic, range, and armor. Their upgrades allow increasing health and damage. The Stormbringer special unit is the Wind Mage, probably the second best special unit next to the Drummer, because he raises all friendly units' armor in an area around him. So when mixed with the Drummer, can make an army really tanky. The two base units for the Stormbringer clan are alright. Their melee unit I didn't use very much at all because their basic range unit was cheap and decent enough. The Fire Breather is really fun and great at dealing with crowds. And last but not least, the Ice Mage has a long range attack pretty reminiscent of the Hellfire clan's Bombardier, and is overall a really good unit. The Stormbringers have a pretty good defense tower, being the Tesla coil, and their Titan is a giant lightning elemental which can turn into a tornado or shoot out lightning. The Plaugespitter clan hails from the Swamp, which plays a big role in their art style and playstyle. All of the Plaugespitter units have a mossy, almost root-infested skin texture, and generally look somewhat diseased. They're definitely a product of their environment. The Plaugespitters are probably one of the most unique factions in the game. They focus on speed and their poison, which can paralyze and slow down enemies. Not just slowing down their movement, but also their attack speed. I honestly didn't really use this faction too much because overall I thought they were a bit squishy. Their special unit uses a special poison that dissolves enemy armor. The two basic units are good. Their medium ranged unit, the Bile Spitter, is the unit I used the most when playing this faction. They just shoot out a bunch of bile on enemies and have a decent amount of area they can hit. And the Shaman I didn't use very much. Their tower is good. I think it might apply the same poison their units use, and their Titan is a slime that grows bigger the more it eats. When it reaches its size limit, it can let out a big burst, reducing it back to its normal size. The Nighthorde is a very dark and conniving clan. Their skin is a nice purple, and they focus a lot on death and the occult. They also generally give off a somewhat eerie, almost evil vibe. The Nighthorde, like the Stonekrushers, focus a lot on melee, upgrading armor and damage. Their special unit is weird and I don't 100% know what they do, but it says they steal souls, which I'm guessing just gives you more souls when killing enemies. Their two basic units are pretty good. I really like their ranged unit. Overall, they're just a good ranged unit and have a cool design. Both of their other melee units are pretty good too. The Cannibal and the Grave Robber, I think they're just both direct upgrades of the basic melee unit they have. so once I get these, I don't usually make the Scrounger. Their tower is strange and just seems alright, and their Titan I really like. It's just a giant mechanical spiked ball that can jump and explode. You can only use their Titan in skirmish, so sadly they're nowhere in the campaign to have fun with. The overall story is fairly basic. You play as Grommel, the leader of the Stonecrusher clan, and witness your master and the creator of all goblin kind, Frazel, die. Grommel then sets off on a journey to unite all the goblin clans and figure out what happened to his master. Overall, it was a fun story. All of the different clan leaders are fun and have their unique quirks. The mission design is fun and introduces you to the mechanics well. The campaign took me roughly like 6 to 7 hours, I think, and it had a good variety of mission objectives. Goblin Commander is an interesting game. It has some good and some bad, but I'd say overall there's a good time to be had, especially since you can emulate it and play it entirely for free. There are some big things that hold it back a lot in my opinion, those being mainly the lack of an AI in skirmish, only really able to have 3 controllable squads, and a lack of unit variety. So with that being said, I think I'll put this in D tier. This might change in the future, but once again, I don't hate this game, I actually like it quite a bit. I just feel like there's a lot better RTS games out there, and this one just does not have a lot of depth or replayability to it.